about Miss Ginsburg had passed away last week, I guess, and everybody's, well, one side is happy and laughing about appointing a new Supreme Court justice to give their team a bigger balance. The other side is paranoid because of this, and they see the whole United States unraveling. First of all, the United States can't unravel any faster than it's already unraveling. This is almost a sure thing. All the sicknesses and illnesses of a society, along with denial. You know, a drug addict, when we all have relatives that they got addicted to drugs or alcohol. They may have lost their house, or first they would lose their job because they couldn't go to work regularly. Then they would lose their house. Then they would lose their family generally, and they'd be out there just trying to get their little fix once or twice a day. And if you talk to them, they would always tell you, I ain't hooked, man. I can beat this. They would be in denial. Denial is the earliest and most constant response to an addiction. You know, I ain't hooked. I can do this and I can do that. Now, white folks say that you got to hit rock bottom before you have no more excuses before you begin to get yourself together and try to, if you ever can. This rally against constitutional dictatorship, we've always referred to America as a constitutional dictatorship. You don't have to worry about tyranny. Indians have always been tyrannized. Black people have always been tyrannized. Latinos has been tyrannized since they stole all the land from them. So we understand tyranny. Now, a lot of people don't understand tyranny. And they was talking about tyranny in relation to 1619, a new project that the African Americans started to educate people, the 1619 project. We've been here longer than any of y'all, you know, like 1619, the Plymouth Rock thing didn't get here to 1620, right? So that means we've been here, the first boat got here, we was on that boy. And now, the respondents, the people who are talking about make America great again, and America has always been great, but we just had a few bad years, that's old Don them has got the 1776 project. Well, you see, Don don't know much about America at all. If he did, he would know the things that we were reading about, the part they was going to put in the Declaration of Independence, but left it out. 3/5 compromise, you know what I mean, as far as black people. Don, he don't know nothing about that. And talk about Frederick Douglass, this man, when they asked him about Frederick Douglass, he said, oh yeah, he's doing fine, like he's right around the corner. Right. I said, this man is so out of lunch, it don't make no difference. But Frederick Douglass himself, one of his greatest lectures was on the 4th of July, because the abolitionists, of course, who were white folks, invited him to give a talk celebrating the 4th of July. Good God Almighty, when I first read that about 30 years ago, I said, ooh, boy, this is...
The response from my try to get you onto a platform and talk about something like go off script, and that's what Frederick Douglass did.
Man, I say, good God, this is your 4th of July. This ain't, you know. Hey, anyway, so about constitutional dictatorship, we understand that. We've always understood that. And this was, man, like 1999. That's 20 years ago, 21 years ago. In fact, it was September the 24th. This is September the 23rd. Yeah, man. Good God Almighty, talking about pulling out old flyers. That was, anyway, domestic covert action against Muslims, secret evidence, roving wiretaps. In those days, they still had wiretaps where they had to tap your phone. Now, Pepco or Bipco or somebody just, the company that take care of all the information, the internet, they just pipe it into their thing. Deportation of immigrant activists without due process, constitutional dictatorship, intimidation of law-abiding citizens, infiltration of masajid and Islamic centers, psychological warfare, harassment through the legal system. Well, of course, we've dealt with all of that. I want to breeze a little bit about world history at a glance. And by the end, I will put the final piece to this together, why we want to do world history at a glance. First of all, in the last century, we had World War I and World War II. We'll just skip that ancient history. World War I was because in 1885, the Germans chose Bismarck as a chancellor. And under Bismarck, Germany became strong again. So strong, now Germany had got into the colonial race late. So when Germany looked around, there were already not nation states, but empires. The British Empire, the sun never set on the British Empire, and they had the big share of the world. Next was the French Empire. Shoot, the French had big sections of South Africa, not South Africa, but they had all big sections of West Africa. They call them Francophone countries, the countries that speak French. They're still tied closely to France. All down in the islands, they had French colonies and what have you. And they had Suriname, Dutch Guiana, French Guiana, down at the tip of South America. They used to do those, they look small on the map, 3 giant countries. So World War I was briefly because there was alliances that developed, and the people that didn't have any colonies was actually telling the British and the French, y'all got to share some of that with us, so we're taking them. And that's what Germany spread it out to do, to take colonies from Britain and France mainly. Of course, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliances, they lost. So the Germans, the Ottomans, and those people, they were on one side and they lost their empire. And so World War II comes along. World War II was a refight of World War I. See, Hitler looked at it, we didn't finish this. So we're fighting again. It's all about colonies. There's one book, there's a title called Thieves Fall Out. In other words, those global thieves. Now, there's one group that's sticking out here. On your phone, can you dial up, type up Admiral Perry, 1853? You might remember it from history. Admiral Perry, 1853. Admiral Perry in 1853 was an American admiral that supposedly opened up Japan. Now, Japan in those days was just like what it is. It's an island country, and Japan was over there, right? Minding its own business. That's 1853. Now, 50 years later, now I mean, they're not in the Stone Age, because Japan and China at one time in history was more modern than Europe was. Because China is 4,000 years of history, so for most of their period, they were big in the world. In fact, China and India were, as Morubani said, they were the biggest economies for thousands of years. So in 1904, there was a war between Russia and Japan. Guess who won? Japan won. What does that mean? In 50 years, 1853 to 1904, Japan had moved from an ancient society to big modern ships. I mean, they jumped bad, and they shocked the world. Remember, Japan's a little island country there. There ain't no. And Russia is 1/6 or one something or other. It's got 8 time zones, 600 million square miles. And it was really, at that time, it was the Russian Empire, because the Russians and the British used to call it the Great Game. They was at each other's throat. But this brief history of alliances, when you get World War II, let's say the Germans and the Japanese lost World War II. That's what everybody say. And the Americans and the West won it. What they did after World War II, if you notice, the German economy and the Japanese economy is big and serious. In fact, up until the Chinese kicked in the door a little while ago, Japan was number 2 in the world, and Germany was basically number 3. Why is that? That's because after World War II, the West reviewed their own history, and they said there are natural leaders in the world, natural leaders in certain regions. And that region is Germany. You know, Germany is bad. They've always been bad, and they come out fighting, every time. And the Japanese, they're natural in Asia. They used to refer to Japanese as the white man of Asia, because, boy, they was a brutal crew. I mean, it wasn't even fair. So they called them natural leaders. What did they do after World War II? Instead of trying to crush them, they just had U.S. troops stationed all over Japan and U.S. troops in Germany, and they're still there. But they built up the economy of each one of them. Why? Because they're natural leaders. If you don't give them a share, they're going to ease around, and pretty soon you're going to be fighting them again, because they're natural leaders in their area. Now, I said that to get to the Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf have one natural leader in that environment. It's Iran. They call it the Persian Gulf. The old empires, part of Afghanistan and all that, that was part of the Persian Empire. Iran, that was part of the Persian Empire, yeah. Okay. So, right now, there's a focus on trying to keep a lid on Iran and break the back of Iran. Why is it not working? Because Iran is a natural in that area. It's natural. The size, you ought to see their technology. Well, if you read any of this stuff, they just put their thing in outer space the other week. When I was in Iran last time, there was a big Hollywoodism conference, and it was about telecommunications, about getting their views across in the world media. And I told them, I said, you're not going to get yours across in the world media. I said, they didn't close down the Hezbollah station. They didn't close down Press TV in Spanish. They called it something else. But they're out to make sure your word don't get out. So the only way you're going to get your word out is you get your satellites out there, and later on that night, the brothers took me to a place, and it was a little globe on the floor, really. The little plastic globe that they have in classrooms. And they said, in order to have excellent communications system, you have to have 1, 2, 3 satellites.
Right, yeah. Cover the whole sphere.
They said they got one up there already. They might have more than that. So they got one up there. Just the other day, they celebrated September the 22nd was the technical date that Iraq invaded Iran 40 years ago. With all the world's help, and Iran is still there. So, in fact, they were celebrating what they call sacred defense. And Iraq had help from everybody. But they're trying to squeeze Iran. What does squeezing Iran do? Iran then jumped light years away. It's number 4 or 5 in the world in drones. I mean, it's already that. I would say probably number 4 in drones, drone technology. In fact, they're so skillful in 2012, they stole an American drone. The big drones, it was flying over, whatever they did, they programmed their stuff and they brought it down in Iran. And then they reverse engineered it. So after they reverse engineered it, they showed all these American drones. They said it crash land. They said it didn't crash land. They showed the drone taking off from an American base, and they showed it landed in Iran, because that was one. Anyway, the point is, Iranians are sharp. They're some of the best students they had over here. All of them mostly were studying engineering and technology. Okay, they also have, since they had Uthmaniyya, that's the Ottoman Empire, they had Safavid dynasty. Safavids were from Iran. But you go back 2,500 years, in the Bible you read about Darius and all of those. That's the Persian Empire. Daniel in the lion's den is in Persia. The Persians captured Jerusalem in 589 BC. That's how they got a Jewish community in Iran today, a big Jewish community. They've been there for 2,500 years. And if they were oppressed, they'd have enough sense to leave. Anyway. So the thing about Japan and Britain, they all had strong navies. Why? Because both of them are island countries. So they have strong navies, big trade. In this modern realliance, we're looking at Iran. If you look at the map, you see Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkey up here. There are certain natural things that's working in their favor. Number one, the Kurds that still have a little bit of the Syrian oil in Syria, okay. Where are the Kurds? And who are the Kurds? Actually, during the Ottoman Empire, the Kurds they really supported the Ottoman Empire. Salahuddin Ayyub was a Kurd from Iraq. Then he went to Egypt as a sultan. But anyway, so when you take the world that we're looking at, they're trying to isolate Iran, trying to cut it off. When you cut it off, that makes the people, if they had a war 40 years ago and nobody helped them, they're not going to get into that again. So you can't tell them, you can't fix no missiles, you can't do this. Hey man, Iran is on a roll in missile technology. They make some of their own aircraft. Iran is basically on a roll. Why? Because that we have ruled before mentality is natural. See, in Iranian history, let's say they ruled a lot of the world for 1,000 years. Go back 2,500. Then they might have had 200-300 bad years, and they was down. Then they come back up again. That's what that Surah Ghulibatul Rum, about Rome, about Rome. The Christians have lost a great battle up there, but in a few years, they lost it. The reason that the Muslims was pro-Christian because they was Ali Kitab against the Persian fire worshippers. So the fire worshippers had won temporarily, but the Quran said they'll be back in a little while, and they did. So if you go after that, they may have 200 or 300 bad years and then they back. So Iran had a bad 100 years. Now they said, we back. You know, we back. We're Persians. They have it in their mind. We're Persians. We have all of this skillful stuff. We ran the world. So that's what we do. Just think about it. Every now and then we have a little dip, but we are made to rule, especially in this area. The mistake that they're making, they're trying to squash Iran. Instead, that makes it stronger. Instead of saying Iran is a natural leader in that region. And then when you take Iran, maybe it can't reunite that whole other Mughal empire, but Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, and then you take all the other areas up there. If you take the Kurds, where do they have Kurds? You don't have to worry. Turkey's not going to allow the Kurds to have no freedom or nothing. The Kurds are in Turkey. The Kurds are in Iran. Kurds are in Iraq, right? There's a corner of Kurds in Syria. And they made some mistakes. walking around carrying Zionist flags, right? So ain't nobody gonna give them nothing. They're not gonna, those things are what unify some of the other people in there. They said, we can't argue, well, we got a little argument about this, that, and other, but after all, we gotta stick together, or else the United States or somebody will hook them guys up and they'll cut off a whole piece of all our territory and call it Kurdistan. We are for freedom for everybody, but in the meantime, not freedom for people who are allowing themselves to be manipulated by the West against other people who are Muslims. So, natural leaders, Iran and the Persian Gulf. So there's a realignment of those people. So from the microcosm looking in the microscope to the macrocosm looking at the whole universe, there's a whole realignment taking place. And that realignment is all against, right now, the East is rising and the West is going into a decline. When I say the East, all you got to do is remember China is big. China is on friendly terms with Japan. They haven't buried the hatchet fully, but they done just about buried the hatchet. That means they won't allow anybody from the outside to have each one of them arguing with each other, even though there's a few things. And as time go on, as the U.S. continue to keep their bases in Japan and rape Japanese women on Okinawa and other places, and they keep hollering at the UN yesterday about old dumb Don, about China virus, you know what I mean? And the Chinese said, man, y'all is crazy. And the world is looking at the United States and just laughing. What happened to you? Remember, they big bad, just a few years ago, they big bad America. And 2 days ago, they just hit 200,000 people, or maybe yesterday. 200,000 dead. How can you have 20% of the people dead and you're 4 or 5%, 4% of the global population? Something's wrong, boss man. What are you doing wrong? Then, boss man himself is moving into tyranny. Not moving into tyranny, excuse me, he ain't moving into tyranny. He's been a tyrant, but it's a visible tyranny. Because when all the world is being shaken up, the United States is not solving any problem. Right? Everybody marching in the street, and they telling Chinese, you messing with the Uyghurs, which is just a teeny bit of truth in it. Just a teeny. But what they say about me and you, the Negro, everybody in the street, everybody in the world know just a minute. And for them to have their need to shoot and invade, look, U.S. credibility is in the dirt. One of the things that's hard to buy is credibility. And you can't buy love and trust. But all of those things are drifting away. The tyranny aspect means that the U.S. is doing everything that a country would do to itself in a decline. The wars, it happened one. The women going to hospitals down on the border and they're giving them hysterectomies. Forest fires, oh my goodness. Floods, everything that would relate to the decline of a system, both things that the system does to itself and the natural environment. And they're not solving nor are they even thinking about any of those problems. Nobody running for president or anything. Technically, that's why I say to us, it don't make no difference. Don't lose no sleep over them getting another Republican in there. Great. It'll accelerate their decline, right? No, that'll make them, you talking now, you can't, and all the people we was reaching out to get, like the poor people, the poor white people. One white man just said, I was listening to a lecture maybe an hour or so ago, he was talking about the big counties that Donald Trump won in Ohio and Pennsylvania was those counties where the death rate amongst white people is in a steep decline. What I'm saying is opioids. Yeah, he went in all those people, and those are the people that should be fighting them. Don't worry. Don't worry. Remember, when a dope fiend wake up and see who it is, when the world wakes up and said, we're fighting all our wars because this will help the Israelis. It ain't the it's not the Russians, it's the Israelis. The Israelis is doing all of this stuff, and some kind of way they got the people pretending that, it's the Russians doing all of this. Well, it's not the Russians doing everything. They doing their little part too, but it's the Israelis. And it is all the fault of this whole historical process. This didn't happen in 1 week. This didn't happen, if it was 50 years ago or more. One of the main saying after the Tet Offensive, the center cannot hold. Things fall apart. Right after that, Nixon quit and all of that. They had all that stuff. The U.S. went through a difficult phase. This is different. This is, it looks like the final close. I would just like to read, now I'm going to get to what we really wanted to talk about. If anyone travels on the road in search of knowledge, Allah will cause him to travel on one of the roads to paradise. The angels will lower their wings in their great pleasure with one who seeks knowledge. The inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, and even the fish in the deep waters, will ask forgiveness for the learned man. This is Abu Dawood. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his angels, and the dwellers of the heavens and the earth, and even the ant in its hole, and the fish send blessings upon a preacher of good to the people. This is in Tirmidhi. One of the hadith was Abu Dawood, and Abu Dawood is the third strongest set of hadith, and it deals with these ideas that you can build your Islam on. It's Abu Dawood. Tirmidhi is one of the Sahih Sita, and it says the same thing. And people think that we should use our technology and everything to clean up the air and the water and all the lakes and rivers, which we will. But the first one to clean up is the man. Clean up the man, and the man will clean up the environment. Behold, thy Lord said to the angels, I will create a vicegerent, that is a Khalifa on earth. They said, wilt thou place therein one who will make mischief therein and shed blood, a mufsid? Whilst we do celebrate thy praises and glorify thy holy name. He said, I know what you know not. In other words, I know what you know, but I know what you know not. So this thing about the angels, when Allah says, I will create a Khalifa, A Khalifa is a vicegerent of people, something that will, a person that will lead, and in this case, is talking about a custodian. Because if you look in the dictionary, it has for Khalifa, it has a caliph, a ruler, a leader. Then the next one is a custodian. You know where it has different meanings. The next meaning is custodian. That means the one that keeps everything clean, the one that keeps everything organized. So this Khalifa, Allah's Khalifa, will keep things working well. Now I'm going to go back to 2013. Can you see that number right there at the top where it says 2013? Right here.
Okay. Yeah.
2013. I'll pass it to you later, just so that you have a certain amount of certainty. If anyone travels on the road in search of knowledge, Allah will cause him to travel on one of the roads to paradise. The angels will lower their wings in their great pleasure with one who seeks knowledge. The inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, and even the fish in the deep waters, will ask forgiveness for the learned man. Now remember, even out there in California, we always talked about, soon as we had decided to use some of our property out there, all right, for homeless or unhoused people, we said the system went berserk, which it did. And it went berserk in 2013. 2013 in April is when the thing about my son being killed and grandson being killed and all of that, that was 2013. The program, I went to South Africa, then I came back, and the programs we had in California was December 2013. Why all of a sudden 2013? I'm going to read, you saw the number from our notebook, 2013. What were we up to, and what were we doing? What was we actually doing with the project? Because remember, that property we're talking about is 8,000 square feet. This building, top and bottom, is 7,500 square feet. So take this building and move it next to this, right? Both floors now. This floor would be like 3,600 square feet or something. Downstairs is the same. Take this and set it next to this and put another 500 or 600 square feet next to it. That's a lot of room. That's a lot of room. And each one of them have their own separate door. We had already remodeled, I mean really up to par. That's why we opened that Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. Next to that, on this side, that's 8111 and 8109. 8111, the front part of the building was about 3/4 this size. And then you have the back too, so that's a lot of space. What they're going to have is what we had suggested, that be Dar al-Wahda. What is it? The Arab Masjid. Next door, the Spanish-speaking masjid. We got all this room. Hey, who's going to argue with that? And they're all part of Masjid al-Islam. In other words, so many Arabs in Oakland, all the store owners, you have your own masjid. You tied with us. This is not division. This is a type of unity. The Spanish have their own Spanish-speaking masjid, all good friend relations, of course it's all on our property, da-da-da-da-da, and then the Negro masjid right down the street. That's why I call it Dar al-Wahda. That means anybody in the region can find the reason to go to their centers. But we're all together. For Eids, we're all together. For people that want to learn Arabic, we, the Negroes, send them over to the Arabic-speaking da-da-da-da-da, right? And they have their Arabic class. This is all on paper, what we was, okay, this is already, if you listen to the lectures of those times, that's what we're saying we're getting ready to do. And instead of smiles, the Arabs is leading the prayers there, they almost mad. What? So how would you be, where's the smiles? Anyway, and then the Spanish-speaking people, they want to learn Arabic too. They go right next door. When they give their khutbah, they give their khutbah in Spanish. What's wrong with that, right? The Arabs give their khutbah in Arabic. We give our khutbah in English, and we all can throw a rock at each other. Some are next door to each other. That's the proper use of our property. Now, this is the kicker for the rest of that big space that we got, and across the street at the school. New Earth Complex Mobilization Center. And you saw the number, I'll pass it to you in a minute. New Earth Complex Mobilization Center. Resource Center, 8111. Neighborhood operation. Declare war on carbon. Carbon attack. Billions of trees. You can pass this back, but you could see that right there where the red arrow is, and up at the top it has the date. Okay, 8121, big lot, I don't know how to, right. Garden Center, urban agriculture. Remember, we got a lot of property out there. So we got the places to practice urban agriculture. Anti-Carbon Defense Department. This is something we were already doing. Anti-Carbon Defense Department, like a defense against carbon, right? If you want to know what boss man, what made him act up like a fool in 2013, because this comes from, you see on the other page, where it says agenda, a platform, 2013. This is the platform for 2013, 7 years ago. Anti-Carbon Defense Department, Counter Carbon Justice Organization, New World Mobilization Center, Region-wide Anti-Carbon Eradication, Counter Carbon Evolutionary Movement, double reserve. Then this is a statement: we always transition at the right historical time to use our acquired education, experience, and training. So we're transitioning, right? Right in the middle of all of this stuff, we're making the proper transition. What is the proper transition? Well, it's right here. Anyone can read it. Counter Carbon Justice Organization. Now, in fact, yeah, you can see platform right there. Now, what does this all mean, though? No loss in this adventure. No loss in this. This is adventure only. Gain maximum reforestation. Stage 1, regional, for the Bay Area and all that, 1 million trees. You'll be able to see it here. Stage 2, national, United States, 1 billion trees. Stage 3, global, 1 trillion trees. And we talk about Facebook. Earth rights, earth liberation, and caliphate, custodianship. Forest, oceans, rivers, lakes, air, desert. That's a book out called, I don't know if anybody ever read it, called Green Dean. You ever read that? But you knew it's, yeah, it's out. Okay, I just have it. Okay. This is not new. We've been thinking about this, working on this for like decades. But this is a time when we instituted, this was already, that's what we're like working on right there. We're already going around to visits to, now imagine Oakland, I imagine Berkeley, San Francisco, all the wonderful organizations, environmentalists. You don't have to go nowhere but right there. That's where the Sierra Club, anybody you can name, they're in Berkeley. So you go to their offices, you get all their literature, which we'll be doing again here. That's what this complex is about. This complex is the exact same thing as what we was doing there. That's why we talk about this is going to be, in fact, we're just going to strip it down, and here, the house next door, everything is going to be a functional, what we call it, New World mobilization, reforestation where needed, forestation where it's not harmful, wilderness development, New World Mobilization Center. In other words, forestation may not be good for every area, right? It may be some natural reason why there's no forest there. So we wouldn't put no forest where it wouldn't be good, according to our research, right? So, right here, this is just a note. I can't explain personal evolution, but it's real. It's natural, historical, accept challenges. Each person has to answer their own personal call. In other words, their own song that they listen to, that they hear inside of them, their own call. It's everybody have one. If somebody listen to it, sometime they might hear it and they get busy right away. Sometime they go their whole life and they never answer that call. And they die usually a boring life. Maybe they got a job at the post office somewhere. No, for security and all that venture out there, they never had it. They never had all that adventure because they didn't answer the call. Because they thought stability, financial stability, was more important than that yearning that they had to make movies, to be an airplane pilot, whatever it was, right? What they wanted to do when they was a kid, they wouldn't follow it up. Everybody got something that they would really like to do. Now, our suggestion is always follow that. I imagine it's not easy because people that study this say 98% of the people don't listen to that call. They don't, right? 98% of the people, some say 99. They did a study at, I think it was Yale, but it was 1952. Now, of course, in those days, all the people who went to Yale was white men, from the same basic background. But they did a study how many of them had written concrete goals in 1952. They came back in 1972, only 20 years later. Can you imagine that 3% that had written goals in their turn was worth more than the whole other 97 that didn't have clear written goals? I want to be a doctor, and I haven't even thought about the office or whatever. But yeah. But the ones that were specific, they was worth more. 3% was worth more than the whole 97%. That's the power of having written clear goals. But I'm saying to myself, I can't explain this personal evolution, although I can now, because this is from To-Do List 2013. So, well, I could do it a little bit then, pretty good even then, because you got to research, you got to study yourself. To study yourself, know your enemy, what all them battles, all victories, because you know yourself, you know your enemy. You know when to pull back, you know when to take it easy. So each person has to answer their own personal call. This is what we encourage people to do, because whatever happens, if they answer their personal call, they can't be a failure. You know, you can't be a failure because you're trying to do what you always wanted to do, right? So you may have trouble, you may have financial trouble trying to make movies and write scripts, be a book writer, and you know what I mean, a world traveler, and having an income. But look at the great writers, the Hemingways and all them people. Part of this, they went over to fight in the Spanish Civil War and stuff like that, the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. They had experience, that's why they could write, you know what I mean? They didn't have no whole lot of good, some of them might have committed suicide, they might have did anything, but they had some experience. Imagine the brother driving nice Cadillac down the street, retired from the post office, and you see them all the time. They got them nice, maybe a 10-year-old Cadillac or something like that. That's what they like. And they driving down the street, and they're gonna be in the cemetery in a little while. And they've been in the post office. The post office wouldn't be bad if it was 50 or 60, 70 years ago, when you just move up here and you got to bring your family up here, you got to get set, you know what I mean? It's not bad at all. But to choose it as a profession, I always wanted to be a postman. Sure, it's good. If that's what you want to do, you won't never be having no trouble delivering mail because you want to do that. We're not saying that what you want to do is bad. If it's your calling, you know, then do that. You know, deliver the mail. Because if you do it, you feel like how important I am delivering. Without me, the people won't get their checks. Without me, right? That's the way anybody that have a job, that's the way you should think about your job, right? How important my job is. This should never say this is a low life, that unimportant job. Heck no. The mail must go through, and this is a Persian saying, whether snow, sleet, hail, right? The mail, that is from the Persian Empire. Thousands of years ago. The mail must go through. That's where it come from, the Persian Empire. No, that's what, no, it ain't come from no mail folks around here. From them, you know, okay. But the point is, whatever you do, at some time, answer your call. Some people wait till their kids get through college and everything, and then they go back and they get another, they become a nurse, or they do this or that. You know, great, it's okay. You know, you got a responsibility and you don't want to take a chance, okay, people. Once they get in their 20s, it's time for me to go and do something for myself. And remember, a person at that time is not only 40 years old. They probably got another 40 years to go. Man, that's a lot of time. Anyway, let me speed up. But this comes from a to-do list: reforestation where needed. Now remember now what we're talking about from Il and Amal. If anyone travels on the road in search of knowledge, Allah will cause them to travel on one of the roads to paradise. The angels, the Malaika, will lower their wings in their great pleasure with one who seeks knowledge. The inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, even the fish in the deep waters. Now, that's talking about us now. You got to remember, the ocean is polluted. The lakes are polluted, right? The air is polluted. The birds flying around. Oh, no. Even the news just said this haze right here today. Well, it's from California, right? Whales, why are there is 400 whales done beached themselves? God, dog. That's the only reason they could be up there. Man, this is effed up. Now imagine why the fish in the sea, the whales, everything would be sending, oh man, look at this water. Hey, when I was a little kid whale, a little while back, it didn't look like this. Something's going on. So they're gonna send blessings. I don't know who it is or what it is, or whatever it is. Boy, this feels good, right? They're gonna send blessings. This is what this hadith is relating to. The birds in the air, the fish in the deep blue sea, the man of knowledge. That's why we say, instead of cleaning up the air, the water, and the land, clean up the man. He'll clean up everything else. He's the one that messed it up, right? They're going to the wrong place. The human being has to become more secure, more balanced, more everything. But anyway, we can get started on this. The fowl of the air, the fish of the sea, everything will hymn praises. Research fresh air makers. Targetism produces bigness. Hugo Chavez down there, that was down in Venezuela. Ahmadinejad, I even have my name, Fidel Mandela the Rahbar. They're all products of pressure. And the one that I talked to specifically, the only politician I ever talked to, not politician, statesman in my life that answered a question that I'm trying to think of something. He said, no problem. Our hearts are in tune. I said, so, and then when he came over here, think about it. Remember on the news, he slapped them white folks around like he's the only one. What are our other brothers? They treat them like some of them they treated like they was running for president of the United States. And they smiling like a Cheshire cat. And they getting the stew whooped out of them. But our people, no. Target, when you're the target, why they grow so much? Because they're the target. You're either going to die or you're going to get big. It's a rule. It ain't nothing new. It's automatic. Automatic. So we're going to try to get back to Iran and try to help get Ahmadinejad in there. Get the word back so that the Rahbar will say, okay, you want to run, because he's the only one can do anything. Our other crackpots, They're nice people, but they're technical crackpots. They're crackpots. I love them. I do. I like them. They're technical friends of mine, but they made a mistake, and they won't cop to it. They won't say, "We blew that." They won't say it, and everybody knows it. Everybody just sitting there looking. That's emperor no clothes. That's ridiculous. So the target, being a target, have benefits. That's why, hey man, people look at what be happening here and they be thinking, this must be the saddest. That's sad. It's the happiest thing. I say, when I talk about contentment, that's 100% true, being contented. Maybe right now it's 80% contentment. 80% contentment because we're focused now on something that we have to do and it's not perfect yet. But if you go back last month when we were just cruising and sucking everything in, 100%, we're content with that. Whatever Allah sent, we like that. Tafweed, all that, we down with that. And right now, technically 80% is 100% because you're not really uncomfortable or nothing like that. It's just that this stuff we got to do. This is important. This is when they started all that stuff in Oakland. Right here, you see the number 213. That's when the stuff started. Why? I never said too much here, but I was doing it there already. Zionists, whatever it was, Institute, all that stuff. And they had told me somewhere that, if you open an institute, I said, that kind of institute, you got to have this, that, and other. And the kind of institutes I opened, they not the ones they not what they wanted. I said, I know what we need here. I don't need no doggone institute with a PhD sitting up in there eating up all the food and stuff. Right? It's insanity. Right? The Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare, what's needed, right? It don't matter how lasts long. Why would the first sign that's pulled down by Mukhtar is that sign, Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. He left the one for the school up, it's probably still there now. He left he tore down that other sign because that's what he was told to do. That's what he was told to do. Okay, we'll speed up a little bit, but we're trying to make sense of all the things that's going on because there's a tyranny that's in America has been tyrannized, but they haven't tasted the tyranny. That's why we back up. We say, y'all want to put another white woman on the Supreme Court, a dictator? It's been a dictatorship all along, right? Now let's get it dictating where you feel it dictating, right? They're going to see, if they don't feel it, like a lot of white people, they be shocked. They actually arrest you. They actually do that. I've heard them say it. Oh, that's not true. Driving while black, they wouldn't arrest you because you black and you driving. They don't arrest me when I'm white and driving. I got to run a stop sign to get stopped. And sometime I might get a warning ticket. What do you mean? They wouldn't do that to you. Nobody would get up in the morning in their mind, I want to shoot a nigga. They don't believe that. They believe it's a few bad apples, right? They don't believe a serious percentage. Let's say 25% of the police want to do you some harm. Stop, nigga. Stand up against the wall and kicking your feet to make you, you know what I mean? They're harassing. They want you, because all of them are there, to turn around and try to hit one of them so they can do it. They want you to do that. They've studied. The sergeant had told him, you want a nigga to get mad, do this, do that, right? It's part of their thing. And if he get out of line and you shoot him, just have a little gun right there or a knife, right? All black people know the police carry a Saturday night special to drop on a nigga if he can, or a knife, right? The only time they don't do it is when it's all on video and the guy's out in the middle of the street. I'm trying to say is that where you would fight a police? Yeah, I heard it.
I'm like, well, that just gives the police more opportunity to shoot somebody if they feel threatened.
They can't, I tell the people about oppression, I said, before the 60s, we could actually fight police, physically fight them, you know what I mean? And they didn't wear body armor, they didn't do all, they were just, now all of them in California was mostly from the South that they had brought out there, but they, you know, after the rebellion, they started shooting Negroes. I mean, just shooting, you know. Okay, they got SWAT teams, they didn't have all that stuff in the old days. But now, don't worry about all of that. This tyranny that America is getting ready to feel is a broad tyranny. It's not just tyranny that we feel, it's tyranny. And look at who's voting for Don. The white man said 2-3 hours ago, said it was in Ohio and in Pennsylvania, the counties where white male life expectancy is going down. That's who's following Don. The same people we wanted to get after. Let it go. We ain't gonna go out there running in the street hollering at you, because soon as they see, they don't understand, stuff click. If they dumb enough to believe Don is on their side and he's from the rich class, and they from the poor class, and he likes them, okay. That's only gonna go along for a minute. That's not gonna last a while. All the signs and symptoms of the decline of this system is already in. I don't see the momentum, inertia is taking it down. I don't see how it could put on the brakes. If they were gonna put on the brakes, they would stop the 2020 election would say, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, we're gonna do this, we're gonna plant trees all over America, right? We're gonna filter all the water going into the ocean. We have to build channels all the way around here and then come back into the river, you know. But that water we're gonna send into the ocean now is gonna be clean. We're gonna go out and clean up the oceans. And we're gonna employ millions of people, right, to clean it up as fast as we can. We got the money to do it because we gave away all of this money, right? It haven't hurt nobody yet. It haven't hurt the government yet. So they can do that, but they're not doing it. If you're not a problem solver, the problem's gonna get worse. So we anticipate the problem will get worse. We know how dangerous it is because this stuff comes from our notebook. Research, fresh air makers, targetism, the target produces bigness. I see this period, this life different from you. This is a great adventure. All right. Message from the Imam. I'll just read a piece of this. I don't know if you remember this was, okay. So, Islam itself, Islam itself and our Islamic mission calls for a steady improvement, which will enable us to take full advantage of the right opportunities as they arise in our struggle to make the deen flourish and prosper. However, as we progress from one stage to another, we must also be sure to take into account the need for adjustment and correction. Of course, we believe that the anchor of As-Sabiqun is the Quran and the Sunnah, but whenever there is movement in any direction, there is also the real possibility of drifting off course, which can become a major obstacle. In other words, if there's movement, there's a possibility for drifting, right? So this was from our first meeting conference. We had two, and each one of them was based on this, studying what we've done so far, right? And then readjusting or adjusting as is needed. This is why we as a community must reconvene from time to time to question ourselves. Where have we been? How have we adjusted? Have we handled ourselves in accord with our own expectations? Now, this is our hero here. Rid yourselves of depression and apathy. Improve your methods and programs of propagation. Try diligently to present Islam accurately and resolve to establish an Islamic government. Assume the lead and join hands with the freedom-loving peoples. An Islamic government will be established. Have confidence in yourselves. You have the power, courage, and sense of strategy needed to struggle for liberty and independence. And they did that. The Islamic Republic is still here. After 40 years, the war was started 40 years ago, plus 2 days, or 1 day. This is 23rd, 22nd. You who succeeded in waking the people and inspiring them to struggle will cause imperialism and tyranny to tremble. Day by day, you are accumulating more experience. See, you can tell he's on his job because he's talking about experience. And he's giving the people, getting them juiced up in the right way. You are accumulating more experience, and your ability to deal with the affairs of society is increasing. Once you have succeeded in overthrowing tyranny, you will certainly be capable of administrating the state and guiding the people. That's from our beloved Imam Khomeini. He was right as rain. And that's what they did. Overlook the knuckleheads. The knuckleheads are being exposed. They're not going to stop nothing. They haven't stopped nothing. Iran declared yesterday, a few days ago, that we have technicians training, to send missiles. They just like Americans when they say we sending advisors. So in 2-3 more days, they're going to be hitting Saudi Arabia. Bam, bam, bam. Why? Because Iran has the missile technology. I don't know if you read the articles, how they just boosting up and building up. And they're going to wear Saudi Arabia out. Because Saudi Arabia has no mercy. Saudi Arabia is just slaughtering them, destroying all the infrastructure, the hospitals, right, everything. Okay, so now that was a decision. They've been helping all along, but now they're saying, hey, we're just gonna go on and get on down. So you can look for that to straighten out in some time. Strategic retreat. Build for spiritual counteroffensive. This is important right here. First, I'll read the first one. Establish a new set of criterion for our As-Sabiqun recruits. It must be understood that although we have been inspired by past Islamic movements, here in the U.S., we are now navigating through uncharted territory with unconventional methods which have never been seen in the history of movements in the USA. In other words, we're blazing a whole new trail. We really are As-Sabiqun now because we went through the Equine type development and all of this stuff. And at this point, this is all new. Whatever we're doing now, and we'll mention a few of it, is new. And it's new, and at this time, we told those guys about, this is the same time, shoot, this is 2 years after 2011, we told them, yeah, no Arab Spring and all that. Yeah, anyway. As we recruit new members and supporters, there are some things to be kept in mind. Our experience is an asset. Recruits must learn about and understand our history and experience. Recruits must understand the implications of the air war in which we are engaged. There will be all kind of material. There's something that's very important here, number 15. We are deliberately setting up an environment in which each member or supporter will keep an eye on everyone around the leadership. No one will be spared. Those who wish to contribute must be willing to work in this environment of suspicion and mistrust, or don't work. What's the blessings of all of this time? That's not the way that's not the policy we're using. We're using love, friendship. Hey, we're saying, we're not lying, saying that this was a big plan from the beginning, right? But we're doing exactly opposite of this. That's the benefit of strategic retreat. Suppose, you got to remember, we dealing with all that stuff and then you dealing with it a few minutes. Suppose we implemented that. Who can work in an environment of suspicion? They think I'm the police. He think I'm the police. She think I'm the police. And then they do something. They think I didn't mean to do that. I ain't the police, and then everybody confessing. That stuff will run you crazy. We don't do that. But I'm saying there's a reason they think they slowed us down because we started the Carbon Defense Department. That's what they was thinking about. They slowed us down and we evolved through this right here. We evolved through this. We wouldn't have got nowhere with suspicion. Nigga, what you doing here? You know, like everybody come by, they got a sign say, I'm a dumb police. You know what I mean? I'm making all this noise and I'm asking all these questions. I'm just being stupid. And they technically got a sign, right? But you don't never see me say, oh, another police. Hey, like you ask, how do you do that? I do it because it's fine. Who cares, right? But that period, now we've been through that evolution before, but this is the time when we having maximum fitna. So this is from one of our articles. At the end, it says, we're going to deliberately setting up an environment in which each member or supporter will keep an eye, everybody, right? It's insanity, right? Okay, you think about it. When they brought us under attack, they thought they was attacking us so we wouldn't have the Carbon Defense Department and the million trees in the Bay Area, billion trees in the U.S. That's why they stopped it. And he's going around visiting all the tree huggers, you know, and getting their literature. We'll do that again. That's what we're going to do now. We're going to do that now, but now we're ready to do it. So strategic retreat or involuntary retreat or them pressing us through, we did exactly opposite of everything that they thought. They thought they put us under that pressure, that it would be pressure. There was no pressure. It made sure, and it was clear after the attack that, wait a minute, that's serious evolution. Because ain't hardly no Negro I know gonna put up with nothing like that. They're not gonna do it. They're just not gonna do it. And they have people in here that sitting in the class, well, I wouldn't take that. That was even before the assault. Then they don't come no more. So we have to prepare for success. This is wonderful stuff. This is, it be called strategic retreat. That's a part of military maneuver. You know, it's a strategic retreat, it's not a retreat. And how could we stop a full-fledged attack anyway? They're attacking this week, they're rolling in with the invading the masjid, right, with all them people. The week before that, we writing down, we're gonna have Cracker Jacks and popcorn, you know, this line, of course, and that's what we're gonna be doing outside, and here they come. You know, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, and they thought that that's actually what we're gonna have there, because I am talking to people and we're out there, but they there and they're kicking the doors, they acting a real fool. Yeah. Okay, this is not important, it's important. $3,050, this is for here. They just say, well, we didn't get this, that, and other, and they charge you $3,000. So you can pay it or they'll sell your property. We have trained for this fight, achieve happiness, Number 24, to be written, our Declaration of Independence, People's Grand Jury for Oakland and D.C., which we will indict the federal, state, and local government. That is, but this was from years and years ago. We can't lose at the cases in California. When they started that stuff, they didn't think we was gonna last. You can tell the way they started. By the time it ended up, it looked like they'd given us the case. They want to give it to us. They have to want to give it to us because they charged me twice on the same case, and all the information that we have in the first trial is there to present. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Book of coincidence, book of circumstances. Coincidence, this happened, that happened, and circumstances. Okay. Recognize that we are at a threshold of history. A threshold is a place, a poetic threshold is the door, a beginning of the entrance or a doorway, the intensity below which a mental or physical stimulus cannot be perceived. In other words, things got to get up to a certain threshold, right, before you can see it or smell it or anything. and can produce no response. We are at the gateway of a new frontier, a new era, an epoch in human civilization in which the possibilities are limitless. Plan and prepare people for a great transition. As discussed in the present newsletter, after historical periods in which generational efforts focused on civil rights and human rights, we are now focusing on our efforts in earth rights. We must assist in the earth recovery so that it can regenerate whatever natural systems are necessary to return it to a state of balance. We've been talking this all the time, but we had already written it a long time ago. The new era brought about by great transitions will lead, inshallah, to the proper fulfillment of rights on all levels, including civil, human, and earth rights. So that's what we started with the world before World War I, or we started technically with Admiral Perry going to Japan in 1853, right? And it showed up. Okay, by 1904, Japan had moved from wherever it was to samurais and all of that. Like if you saw the movie The Last Samurai, when all of a sudden they was getting technology, and pretty soon, even in those days, they got Gatling guns, and he said, the emperor said, we have trains and we have this. That's how fast they move. Can you imagine moving from where they were to 1904? They defeated the Russians. And this little Japan, and Russia is 6, 8 time zones, maybe more than that. They moved from boom to boom. That's why in World War II, shoot, the Japanese had technology. They had technology moving on. And then the Germans, what we're talking about, we was talking about after World War II, they revisited World War I and they said, what we need to do now, that was 75 years ago, we need to rebuild Germany and Japan because they're natural leaders. If you try to hold them down, it ain't gonna work. It didn't work in World War I, it ain't gonna work. So you have to remember 10, 15, 20 years ago, the strongest economies was who? Japan, Germany. US #1. And it's still up there. Why? Because they're natural big shots in the area. You can't keep them down. If you keep them down, you're gonna have to fight them. Sooner or later, you're gonna fight them again. Even if you got troops in their country, they're gonna wiggle around. And pretty soon, they'll engineer something where you gotta leave their country, and then they're gonna come get you, because you're not sharing. So they shared with Japan and Germany, because they're natural. The natural leader in the Middle East is who? The natural historical leader. It's Iran, simple as that. The Persian Gulf, the whole side over here is that. And now look what they're doing in drones and military weapons and all that. They're on the roll because 40 years ago they had to fight that war, and hey, they said we ain't gonna get caught like this again. And now they're transferring their stuff, of course, to Hezbollah, and now they're transferring it to Yemen. That means Yemen is not going to lose. Because when the Saudis with their big fat behind start getting blown up, they're going to say, I quit. Only ones keeping them fighting now is these Zionists. See, why they don't restore the natural leader in the region is because of the Zionists. The problems they're having here in America, they're trying to say it's the Russians. It's not the Russians, it's the Zionists. Oh, the Russians may be throwing a few firecrackers here and there, But the ones that had them go to war in Iraq and everywhere else in that region, the Zionists. For them, imagine now when America, remember, the center cannot hold. They said in 68, things fall apart. The center cannot hold. That's where things look like they're going right now. Let them put another white lady in there to bring the dictatorship. Let them get the feeling, yeah, we're going to show you liberals. Good. Slap them around. Talk bad to it. Back, bring old Don back again. I don't think they will, but bring it, yeah, get busy with it. Yeah, you so bad, go on and knock yourself out. This is what we're telling everybody. Don't panic about, we don't want no white lady to get in there and take a role versus, well, I don't know, kind of whoever it is, right? Let them do it, right? It increases. There's nothing can get in the way of the decline of the United States of America. It is clearing the way for its own decline, right? It's making sure anything that leads to decline, hey, I want to be on that road. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Dangerous curves, no shoulder on the road, right? Forget about that. Got one of them supercharged up. I mean, cliffs ahead, downgrades. Take this exit at 20 miles an hour. They take it at 75 or 80. They got to turn over because they're not paying. Yeah, they could take it at 30 miles an hour. They might be able to even take it at 40, but they can't take it at 70. And what are they doing? They're accelerating. Who are their friends? Nobody. Because nobody would be so stupid to jump on all of their homeboys at one time and ain't got nothing but enemies already, and now ain't got no friends. Can you imagine in the UN that the UN just said, we're not with y'all on that. The French, everybody said it. We're not with y'all. How can it get from all of them being against Iran that now all of them is with Iran? They haven't lived up to what's the name, but they still, okay. We done talked about, we got a little brief, some of our suggestions, and I'll be brief, is about we used to have all these seminars and what have you. Well, we want Iran to have seminars. They can do it at all this new media stuff, right? Yeah, what the heck. We used to have, everybody used to, I didn't, but everybody else would do a paper, and they would present that paper, and they would study the lecture that you're going to give at a conference. And they would type them all out, and when you went in the conference, all the lectures that people give, they would all be on the table. And you talk about helping understanding the world. I collected all of them at every conference. I still have some of them now. And read all of them. So I understand about Africa and the African movements and who was there and what they did. Because all the speakers from Africa, I got all of their stuff. Some of it I still have now. Okay, now we can do, I'm going to be brief, but we can do the same thing today, except Iran is not having these programs based on, it's based on what we've been talking, New Worldism. Where do we go from here? And have scholars from all around the world not go to Iran, but do these, whatever they call them, Zoom, yeah, just Zoom, have several Zoom conferences. But they still have to submit their lectures, and anybody that want those lectures could download it from us. Yeah, that's exactly. They could download all of them, and it would take, they want Iran to focus on what's happening to them right now, but you're going to focus on where we could be. You see what I mean? And then you're going to get everybody talking about where we could be. And imagine all those wonderful lectures. After 3 or 4 programs, after each program, they always had a synopsis of what was discussed. And pretty soon, after the second or third one, you got a whole body of information and suggestions on what could be done. And it would all be coming from Iran. Nobody's doing it, right? And you can invite even modern motivational speakers to speak on that subject. That will force them to stop talking about money, right? And use that whatever they be doing to talk about New Worldism. Because, see, you can help them with their thoughts about what we need to do now, right? But they can't get out of the money trap. So they tell everybody success is this. Just think now you're going to put a new criteria for success. The new criteria is the one that can be the best, produce the less smoke in the environment, all of that stuff, right? So this is what we're going to suggest to Iran. You start having those. You start having those. Don't worry about who comes and what. You just invite, there's going to be a certain amount of people. You can invite the Jews up in New York, right? And all over the world, especially the ones from over there in Lebanon. If you think these Jews over here, you ought to hear them speaking Arabic and talking about, I said, good God Almighty. They make us sound sweetie pie when they talk about swine eating. Oh, I said, good God Almighty. We don't talk about Jews like that, but they do. But they should, because they didn't hijack their religion, right? So they mad, way more madder than we are. They just mean old Zionists to us. But to them, you done stole our religion. You done stole everything we're about. And no, none of you use the Torah, not one of you. You ain't using no Torah, and they sitting there before they won't give no talk on Saturday. They may have a talk typed up. You have to read it. On Saturday, they won't do it because they're Jews. You can't work on Saturday, right? They won't. And the Zionists, Netanyahu talk on Saturday. He can get talk anytime he feel like it. But this is the point, is we have to think, too, about how we can help. The old points about Iran, they've overcome those. But this puts them out right in front. You know what I mean? Where they're in front of the movement. They're not dragging behind. You know what I mean? They're not whining about what's happening. Because those things will be solved. The embargoes and all that will be solved, inshallah. Okay, let me speed up. It's about that time. Now, the idea here is just like what we talked about, except it's a little, we're going to really strip this down. We're going to electrify everything that needs electrifying, bring up everything that needs to be brought up, new tile and everything, and 4481 upstairs and downstairs, that will be GHQ for now, because we can do that first. We can get that ready in a couple of weeks. Now our new writings, we're having a job search, and in our jobs search, we'll give a little description of the type of person that we might want for the job search. Education, they should be educated. Just if we was picking a place, we would say UC Berkeley. And they should have been studying education and management skills. And it should be a woman, most likely, between 50 and 52. They should be mixed race, but they don't look like mixed race. You know, they might have curly hair and stuff, but their daddy might have been a real tar baby. He might have been just so black than the white mama. So they should be mixed race. And they should, the ability to dictate terms of perception. What does that mean? The people out there at large may have a perception of who this person is. But the job description is they have the ability to dictate their own perception. I am who I say I am, not who you say you are. Because not only the association now, see, for instance, the association from years ago and the association of what we're trying to do now, the differences is those people look like children. Like Abdul Malik them and Mukhtar them, they look like children, right? The stuff they do is like the people, when they call it, it's like children. Right? It has nothing to do with what all the stuff we dealing with, and they call it, hey, you're ugly, you're a liar, your daddy sold you into slavery. You can't even laugh, it's so ridiculous. Now, part of this job description is that you have the ability or the desire. Or, yeah, when I say the ability, that means you don't have to have it that day, but you have the ability to improve to that level, that in a short time, you're dictating to the people who they are, who you are, based on what you do. Because your job makes you 10 times bigger, make you a senior citizen, and their job makes them children. They're still playing house, running around at a university, giving a talk. It's playing house. Might as well be playing house. It ain't nothing, right? This what we're doing is big time. So, desire to evolve, to contribute to utopian values. Ability to work in a fishbowl environment. Fishbowl, everybody can see, because it ain't no hide nothing, because everything is there. But you have the ability, you may not have it that day, but to evolve to the point that you're comfortable working in a fishbowl environment. See, everybody is private, I have my own personal business, One of the greatest things, one of the greatest opportunities we have is to work in a fishbowl environment where everybody it ain't nothing hidden, it's all there right away. So that makes you, what does that do? It makes you a better person. You have to be really on the job. If you living in a fishbowl, everybody can see everything you do, you have to be excellent. Right? It forces you. Abdul Malik them is kind of like, they're not sneaky, they're just normal human beings. They think it's bad to have some little imperfection, so they want to hide it. And they do that. That's the way they live that type of life, where they're always trying to, if people knew that, they're trying to hide something, And so they never straighten that up. They never improve that characteristic because they're too busy trying to hide it. Whereas the human being is imperfect, right? So you go through life, there's a little imperfection. Well, I'll work on that imperfection for the next 2 years, 1 year, 5 months, whatever, right? And then you say, I have another, oh, what about this? And you go through life like that, improving. Because there's nothing wrong with being imperfect. If you was perfect, boy, you'd be something to look at. You'd be in a showcase somewhere. This is a perfect Negro here. Look at it. This is a perfect Negro. That'd be big. So far, I haven't seen none. Okay, so ready to start at the ground floor, too. The ground floor. Have historical tactualness, a feeling for history. Or if you don't have it, you have an acquired taste for that. A feeling for history. See, whether you know it or not, we getting ready to be big, like what we did, this big. In other words, like where we are now, this is just a starting point. This is like when we come here, we came here with an old station wagon, a Fiat at that, the little Italian Fiat. Drove up to Canada on the way here, and sold, it was either $1,100 or $1,800 in books. So when we got here in D.C. in '89, maybe around June 23rd or something, see, it was time to come here. Imam Khomeini passed away on June the 3rd, '89. I just came back from Iran before that. And I looked and I saw they're doing a good job on what they're doing, but they're not, you know what I mean? If there's anything big going to be done in America, we have to do it. After all, they too busy with Iran, right? So we always had the spread out mentality. We went to Denver. We was always moving around. But we came here especially to dig in. But we had, it's not a Chinese approach, but in order to capture Kansas City, capture D.C. first. So you went all right. It had worked. It just worked real easy, simple as that. So we haven't made any property acquisition or anything like that for probably about 20 years. So imagine, within 10 years, we did everything that we seeing, and that was a whirlwind. That was a whirl. It was running everybody. What they do? What they doing? They got this. What they got? What they doing over there? And remember, everybody was still against us then, even more than now. So, and this is just a feeling we have about this time, that we really getting ready to explode, you know. And yeah, we're getting ready to explode into the future. Because all of this has come together. That's what all of this was about. And don't worry about the, we were left behind by history. We ain't never been, we're out in front. Everything we're talking about right now is out in front, right? It's not only what the Muslims should be doing, also, we'll just close with, but that's the job search. And we would like to get a call on this. We're not calling anybody on this, but we would really like to get a call on this job search. And this person should be a woman, should be between 50 and 51, and mixed race. I'm not funny, but I just mixed race, you know, what the heck, you know. And I know them black niggas, they all, It ain't that at all. But anyway, this is specific. We would like to get a call. Calling now would mean that that person turned their back on the past and they headed toward the future. That's the only thing that's important. That's what the call would mean. We're turning our back on the past, whatever that was. The past, I ain't worried about that no more. And we're looking toward the future. Okay, we're not going to get into if somebody don't do it, somebody else will. We just think that this is a wonderful time, and believe it or not, I mean, it's a wonderful time in all kind of areas. Unbelievable. And we actually are in a period where we're writing our own future. That's what we're doing right now. Because remember, the things that we have written down, we're going to do. Like we're going to fix up the house. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Can't nobody stop us. So we're going to do. There's a certain percentage of things that we're going to do because we can do them with Allah's help. You can't do nothing without Allah's help. So this is a good time. We've overcome in all the things, and you know when it's time, because when you study yourself and your environment, you see, what have we overcome? You see what I mean? And that number 15, well, everybody that join this crew gonna have to look out and be paranoid all the time, right? That's what it said, right? That would be a ridiculous environment. It just, it wouldn't work. You couldn't keep good people. You couldn't keep good people. So, and definitely, and I'll close with this thing about, kindness, humor, and all that type of thing, optimism. That was from about 11 or 12 years ago. But it even gets higher. All that stuff evolves. There's higher levels of all of that stuff. And if you take the right road, Allah will wash you up and clean you up where everything, no matter what happens, everything is all right. You know what I mean? That's what contentment is. Whatever happens, oh, it's all right. Yeah, I'm down with that. And that's the way it is now. So we look forward to this next stage. It's going to take a lot of energy, a lot of money and everything. And we're starting from scratch. It's not that we're poor or anything, but we just say we don't have it. If we just started from $581 before, we sure, don't mind starting from what we got, $700, $800. That's where we're starting from. And when you look around in a few years, since people understand physical terms, it's going to be something to behold with Allah's help. And I feel that this is a time when people are going to come out of the woodwork. Because see, boss man going to force them out of the woodwork, because they're going to come to the point of, do I trust my wife and children and cousins and all their future to these bums? Right? It's a simple thing. Right, it's simple. It's just, people going to start asking that question. And they're going to say, well, we see where they're coming from. What about the Negro? Well, hell, might as well take a chance with them. right? You can't lose nothing. What do you have to lose, right? And then the thing about a record or a history, no matter what people say, over a period of time, you develop a history. And, you know, when people can count on certain things happening, they say, if so-and-so said it, that's the way that is, because they didn't have 100 years, that's what it is, right? And unless it's some element of psychological guerrilla warfare or some which won't be no more than 5% of whatever it is. So you can, 95% of what that Negro say, that's what it's going to be, clear, right? That adds up after a while, especially when you got Don and Netanyahu and them running around. Hey, you could tell this is a good time. So, are there any questions or comments? Anything?
One comment a brother said, or a brother reached out saying, Salam, this Abdul Matin's son, Yusuf.
Okay, yeah.
Another brother said, I love the wisdom, all praise due to Allah.
Alhamdulillah. Huh?
Yeah, nothing on YouTube. I was checking YouTube.
Oh, okay. All right.